Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're diving into a book that I think we all know, especially around here, The 48 Laws of Power.
A classic. It's a timeless look at power dynamics. How do you get it? How do you use it? It's a little, well, Machiavellian. But that's what makes it so interesting to think about.
Totally. So we're going to break down some of the most interesting laws, the stories behind them, and what they mean for us, in the real world. Ready to get a little strategic?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first up is Law 6, court attention at all cost. Basically, it says that if you're invisible, you're powerless. To make a difference, you got to stand out, be the center of attention.
You need to build a presence, an aura that draws people in. Think about the most impactful people in any field. They're not hiding in the corner.
It's so true. This
Yeah.
law reminds me of P.T. Barnum. Talk about knowing how to get attention.
Oh, Barnum was a master showman. Remember how he got his start? He needed to get people talking about his circus, right? So he gets all dressed up and walks around town, letting people think he's some kind of scandalous preacher.
And it worked. People couldn't look away, even if they were scandalized. I guess it just proves that attention, even bad attention, is powerful.
For sure. So think about that in your own life. What are you amazing at? How can you showcase that and be unforgettable?
That's deep.
Hmm.
Okay, up next we've got Law 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. I've got to say, this one feels a little, I don't know, ethically gray.
It's definitely on the cunning side, yeah. It's about using other people's talents, sure, but always making sure you look like the mastermind.
And the book uses Thomas Edison as an example. It says he was famous for, well, taking credit for what his assistants did. What do you think about that?
Edison's a complicated figure. He was a genius, no doubt, but he was really focused on his own success, maybe even at the expense of others. I think this law makes you ask, how far would you go to get ahead? Where do you draw the line?
Such a good question.
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot between ambition and integrity. Now for Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. That almost sounds wrong, doesn't it?
Right. But the idea is if you do something honest or you're generous at the right time, it can make people drop their defenses. We instinctively want to trust someone who seems genuine.
Yeah, and what better way to seem genuine than to show how honest and generous you are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Even if it's all part of the plan. There's this example in the book about a con artist who would actually plant stories about himself in the newspaper, making himself look like he was this big philanthropist.
Wow. He built up this whole image of being super charitable. Imagine meeting someone like that, someone who seems almost too good to be true. Would you be more likely to trust them, to let your guard down?
You're right, it makes you think. Especially these days when we're always getting so much thrown at us trying to figure out what's real. It makes you realize you have to be careful. Don't just believe everything you see.
Right. Always be aware that you could be manipulated, even in normal, everyday interactions.
Okay, so this next law feels super relevant today. Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. It's like negotiation 101, right?
Totally. It's about knowing what makes people tick. Don't waste time appealing to their better nature. Focus on what's in it for them.
Exactly. Don't remind them of past favors or expect them to feel obligated. Make it about what they get out of it. The book talks about how the Athenians used this to get allies. They didn't try to appeal to emotions. They just laid out a clear, logical case for why teaming up would be a win-win.
It makes you think about how often we try to appeal to emotions when we need something. This law challenges that. What if we always focused on mutual benefit? How would that change things?
Okay, getting into some deeper cuts here with Law Thummy 3. Discover each man's thumbscrew. This one sounds kind of ominous, right?
It's about leverage when you get down to it. The book says everyone's got a thumbscrew, a weak spot, something they're insecure about, a secret desire, and that's how you influence them.
It reminds me of that story about Lola Montez, this woman in 19th century Europe who got super powerful by charming and manipulating these high-ranking men.
Fascinating woman.
Right. The book says she was amazing at figuring out what made these guys tick their insecurities, what they wanted to achieve, what they desired, and she used that to get what she wanted.
She was a master of the game.
Totally. Okay, so we're obviously not saying go out there and manipulate people, but ethically speaking, how can we use this idea of thumbscrews in our own lives?
It's about awareness, isn't it? Noticing those little pressure points in our day-to-day interactions. Could be something as simple as phrasing a request in a way that really speaks to someone's values, or figuring out what makes your boss tick so you can communicate better.
That's such a good point. It's like having a secret decoder ring for how people work. Okay, switching gears a bit. Law 25. Recreate yourself. Feels very relevant in today's world, right?
Totally. This one's about image, how you present yourself. It's not enough to have power. You have to project it, control how people see you.
It's giving very much personal branding. The book uses Julius Caesar as an example. He wasn't just a military genius, he was a master at self-promotion. Those elaborate victory parades he threw for himself, marching through Rome with all the spoils of war. Talk about a PR stunt.
Totally. He knew that image is everything. He built this whole persona that amplified his power and influence. Now think about your personal brand, your online presence. Are you putting out there what you want people to see, what aligns with your goals?
It's a whole different ballgame now with social media, that's for sure. Okay, let's dive into another one. Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following.
This one's all about tapping into that deep human need to belong, to have something to believe in. We're hardwired for it.
The book talks about how people are drawn to those charismatic figures who offer simple solutions to complicated problems. And it makes me think about, well, some of those influential figures throughout history, right? The ones with huge devoted followings.
It's a good reminder to be wary of blind faith, whether it's in others or even in ourselves. Always question, think critically, and be careful of anyone who claims to have all the answers.
Words to live by. Okay, this next one's a bit more, shall we say, assertive. Law 15. Crush your enemy. Totally.
This one's about eliminating threats, making sure they can't come back to haunt you. It's harsh, but the book argues it's often the safest way to play the game of power.
No room for second chances, huh? They bring up Genghis Khan and the Mongol conquests. Talk about ruthless efficiency. The Mongols were notorious for completely wiping out their enemies.
Genghis Khan knew that if you leave even a little bit of your enemy standing, they could come back to get you. He wanted total victory, no chance of future conflict. Now, obviously, we're not endorsing that level of brutality in everyday life.
Yeah, no need to go full Mongol on anyone. But it does make you think about those little battles we let slide, things that could come back to bite us later. Sometimes you got to just deal with it head on.
Exactly. Be decisive. Be strategic about how you handle conflict. Don't let things fester and turn into bigger problems later.
I like it. Okay, this next one feels like a classic power move. Law 28. Enter action with boldness.
It's all about confidence, projecting it even when you don't necessarily feel it. The book says that being timid can make you look weak, while boldness earns respect and admiration.
Think it till you make it, right? They use the example of this young military leader who, even though he was inexperienced, had so much confidence that his troops just rallied behind him. It was contagious, even if it was partly an act. And they ended up winning.
Now, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, of course.
Oh, totally. Charging into something without thinking it through is just asking for trouble.
Exactly. It's about being smart with your boldness. Choose your moments, prepare carefully, and then when the time's right, be decisive and go for it.
I love that strategic boldness. Sounds like a power move in itself. Okay, this one feels a little counterintuitive. Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor.
It's about the power of scarcity. When you're always around, people take you for granted. But if you make yourself scarce, you become more desirable, more sought after.
Like they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder. They talk about King Louis XIV of France. Even though he built that massive, extravagant palace at Versailles, he would often withdraw from court life, made people miss him, crave his presence.
And when he did show up, it meant something. Think about it in your own life. Do people appreciate you more when you're not always available?
Oh, 100%. When you set boundaries, make yourself a little less accessible, people actually value your time more.
Exactly. It's about balance. Be present and engaged, but also cultivate a little bit of mystique, Keep them guessing.
Right. Okay, moving on to a law that feels super relevant in today's world. Law 40. Despise the free lunch.
Ah, yes. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Every gift, every favor, it all comes with strings attached.
The book says that accepting those free lunches makes you vulnerable to manipulation and obligation.
Think about a time when someone did you a favor and then later asked for something in return that made you uncomfortable. It's that icky feeling of owing someone, and that's what people exploit.
Oof, I've been there. It's a good reminder to be mindful of what we're accepting and be wary of people who are too eager to give.
It's not that you have to be suspicious of everyone, but a little healthy skepticism never hurts, especially if the situation feels unbalanced.
For sure. Okay, let's talk about Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability.
Keep them guessing. This is about making your opponents nervous. The book argues that if people don't know what you'll do next, they're more likely to make mistakes, to act out of fear instead of logic.
It's like that Steve Jobs effect.
Yeah.
All the speculation about new Apple products, the secrecy, those big dramatic product launches. He was a master at keeping everyone on the edge of their seats.
Created so much hype and excitement. And you don't have to be a tech CEO to use this principle. How can you add a little element of surprise to your interactions?
Ooh, I like that. Could be as simple as changing up your communication style, taking on a project that no one expects, or even just, playing your cards close to your chest sometimes.
Exactly.
Mm,
Be a little less predictable, a little more spontaneous.
love it. Okay, this next one's interesting. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous.
It's a warning against isolating yourself, tempting as it may be.
The book says that real power comes from connecting with people, building a network of allies. They bring up Louis XIV again. Even though he had Versailles, he was super social.
Yes.
Always networking, gathering information, making sure he knew what was going on.
He knew that isolation makes you vulnerable. The more connected you are, the more eyes and ears you have out there, the harder it is for your enemies to get to you. Think about your own network. Is it a strength or is it isolating you?
Wow, that's a powerful question. It's so easy to get stuck in our own little bubbles. But this is a good reminder to get out there, build those relationships, and stay connected.
100%. And not just for strategic reasons. Human connection is essential for our well-being.
So true. Okay, on to Law 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. Seems like common sense, but you'd be surprised how often we mess this one up.
It's about picking your battles. The book says it's foolish to make enemies unnecessarily, especially people who are vengeful or hold grudges.
Right, like why make your life harder? They have this story about a court jester who made fun of the wrong nobleman. Guess what? The nobleman was not amused, held a grudge for years, just waiting for the chance to get back at him.
It's a good reminder that not everyone is forgiving. Some people will hold on to resentment, waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
It's like they always say, don't poke the bear. You never know how someone's going to react, so better to be safe than sorry, especially when it comes to potential enemies.
Exactly. It's not about being a pushover, it's about being strategic. Save your energy for the battles that really matter.
I like that. Okay, here's another power move. Law 20, do not commit to anyone.
The art of detachment. The book argues that staying uncommitted gives you freedom and options. You become more valuable as an ally because you're not beholden to any one side.
Playing the field, keeping those options open. They talk about Queen Elizabeth I. She famously never got married, even though everyone pressured her to. She knew that marrying anyone would tie her to a specific alliance, and that would limit her power and her freedom.
By staying single, she could play different sides against each other and maintain her independence and power.
That's amazing. She knew what she was doing. It makes you think about how often we feel like we have to choose sides to commit to one path. This law is like, what if we didn't? What if we stayed neutral?
What if we stayed true to ourselves and our goals and didn't let others pressure us into anything else?
So good. All right, on to Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark.
The art of playing dumb. Now, this doesn't mean you should actually be unintelligent. It's about making your opponent feel smarter than you.
Use their ego against them.
Exactly. Make them think they have the upper hand, and they'll let their guard down. The book talks about this businessman who pretended to be totally clueless about a deal he was trying to make. His potential partners thought, oh, he's naive, we can take advantage of him. Big mistake.
They underestimated him.
Totally. He ended up negotiating a fantastic deal because they thought they were the smart ones.
Love it. Like that classic movie trope, the underestimated character outsmarts everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one that feels like a crucial life skill. Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power.
The art of strategic retreat. Sometimes it's better to surrender, to look weaker than you are, to achieve a bigger victory later.
Choose your battles, right? They tell a story about this small city-state that was about to be invaded by a huge, powerful army. They knew they couldn't win a fight, so they surrendered. But get this, they completely abandoned the city.
Left it empty?
Empty. The invading army shows up, ready to claim their prize, and there's nothing there. No spoils of war, no one to rule over.
What happened?
They lost morale, they started infighting, and eventually they were so weak that the original inhabitants of the city were able to take it back.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. It's about knowing when to hold them, knowing when to fold them. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is retreat, regroup, and wait for a better opportunity.
There's strength in strategic surrender. Choose your battles.
100%. Okay, this next one feels super relevant for our fast-paced world. Law 23. Concentrate your forces.
Focus. This one's all about directing your energy toward one clear goal. Don't spread yourself too thin.
The book says that if you try to do everything, you'll end up achieving nothing.
They have this great analogy. Imagine a magnifying glass focusing the sun's rays on a single point. That concentrated heat becomes incredibly powerful.
Ooh, I like that. It's about finding where you can have the biggest impact and then going all in on that.
In a world full of distractions and endless possibilities, focus is key to achieving anything worthwhile.
So true. Okay, so this next law feels like one of those easier said than done things. Law 24, play the courtier.
It's about being savvy, mastering the art of navigating those social situations, especially where there are hierarchies and power dynamics at play.
Yeah, like office politics, social circles, even family gatherings, right?
Yeah.
You got to be strategic in those settings.
Absolutely. The book argues that the people who really get ahead are the ones who've mastered that subtle flattery, know how to build strategic alliances, and have a sense of when to speak up and when to, well, keep their mouths shut.
It's like being a social chameleon, adapting to different people and situations.
Right. But it's important to remember this doesn't mean being fake or two-faced.
No, not at all.
It's more about being aware of how you're coming across, reading the room, understanding the unspoken rules of the game.
It's true. Every situation has its own vibe.
Exactly. Think of it like a dance. It takes practice and finesse.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, let's talk about a law that's both empowering and a little intimidating. Law 26. Keep your hands clean.
Protect your reputation at all costs.
Yep.
Maintain that image of being above it all.
Never get your hands dirty, even if it means someone else has to.
Right. The book gives the example of this powerful ruler. He had a rival, obviously wanted him gone. So what does he do? He secretly hires assassins to take care of the problem.
Whoa.
But he made sure there was absolutely no trail leading back to him, so he kept his public image squeaky clean, the just and righteous leader.
Wow. Okay, so we're definitely not saying go out and hire an assassin. But it makes you think about all the times we get dragged into other people's drama or take the blame for things we didn't do.
This law is about being smarter than that. Delegate when you can and protect yourself, your reputation. It's valuable.
It's true. Your reputation is everything. You got to be strategic with your energy, choose your battles, and sometimes you just got to step back and let other people duke it out.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, moving on to a law that feels super relevant in our age of information overload. Law 29. Plan all the way to the end.
Have a vision, right? Know where you're going and how you're going to get there.
Exactly. The book argues that if you don't have a plan, you're basically planning to fail.
And none of us want that.
Right. This is about being intentional with your actions. Think several steps ahead. What are the obstacles? What are the opportunities?
Be proactive.
Yes. The book tells this fascinating story about this young chess prodigy. The kid was naturally brilliant, but he kept losing matches. Why? Because he was so focused on the immediate moves that he didn't think about the long-term implications of his strategy.
You couldn't see the big picture.
Exactly. He didn't have that overarching vision, and it cost him.
It's a good reminder that even if you're super talented, you can't afford to be short-sighted.
We all need to cultivate that strategic thinking, that ability to play the long game.
Love that. Play the long game. That's some good life advice right there. Okay, this next one feels a little sneaky, but also kind of genius. Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless.
Ah, yes. Make it look easy. Even if you've poured your heart and soul into something, always make it seem like it was no big deal.
Never let them see you sweat.
Exactly. Think about those performers or athletes who make the incredibly difficult look effortless. They've put in countless hours of practice, but they make it look so easy, so natural.
It's like a magic trick. You're so busy being impressed by what they're doing that you don't even think about all the work that went into it.
And that's the beauty of it. You create this aura of mystique.
People just assume you're naturally gifted. Okay, let's dive into Law 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal.
Take control. Don't just accept the options presented to you. Create your own.
Set the terms of engagement.
Exactly. The book has this fascinating example about a negotiator who got an amazing deal just by introducing a third option. Now, this option wasn't great, not for either side.
So what was the point of adding it?
It shifted the playing field. By controlling the options, by framing the choices in a way that benefited him, he could steer the whole negotiation.
That's so smart. It's like a magician forcing a card. You think you have a choice, but really, they're leading you exactly where they want you to go.
Precisely. Be strategic, think ahead, and understand how those choices, even the little ones, can be used to your advantage.
Wow, this has been amazing. So much to think about. It feels like we just scratched the surface of the 48 Laws of Power.
Right. It's one of those books you can revisit over and over and still find new insights. It's about understanding human nature, strategy, and the dynamics of power.
Absolutely. So much to ponder. Thanks for diving into these laws with us today, everyone. Keep those power plays strategic, ethical, and always fascinating. Until next time.